In a break with recent history, the U.S. military is weighing whether to withhold the Truman Carrier Strike Group from deploying to the Middle East, opting instead to keep the carrier in the Mediterranean and the European theater. 3 defense officials with knowledge of the deliberations said the move would be a response to Russian activities in the region and aligns with the new national defense strategy that calls on the military to be less operationally predictable. No decision has been made yet, but the move is under discussion, according to one defense official, who spoke on background to discuss internal deliberations. Keeping the Norfolk, Virginia-based Truman in Europe, foregoing a trip through the Suez Canal and into U.S. Central Command territory, would be a major departure from the normal rotational presence missions the Navy has conducted since Operation Desert Storm, in which a trip through the ditch is almost a foregone conclusion. But the move would track with a renewed focus on great power competition as the military seeks new ways to employ its forces to meet what it sees as a rising challenge from Russia and China. The plan, which is being weighed at the highest levels of the military, would serve both to reassure allies nervous about what they perceive as an increasingly assertive Russian presence in the region and would free up other U.S. assets to perform patrols in hotspots such as the Baltic and the Black Sea, said Jerry Hendricks, a retired Navy captain and analyst with the Center for a New American Security. "Nothing says I love you quite like a carrier," Hendricks said. It would also serve as an imposing reminder of President Donald Trump's warning to Syrian President Bashar Assad that any further use of chemical weapons against civilian populations in Syria would be met with renewed strikes. Truman entered U.S. 6th Fleet this week after departing Norfolk on April 11th. A dedicated Europe deployment for a carrier strike group would be remarkable, but U.S. carriers have been more active in the Mediterranean in recent months. Truman conducted strikes on the Islamic State group in Syria from the Mediterranean Sea during its 2016 deployment, as did the George H.W. Bush in 2017. The military has been increasingly willing to stomach gaps in carrier presence in the Arabian Gulf and the surrounding region. Beginning in 2015, the Gulf has intermittently been without a carrier strike group for months at a time as land-based aircraft have backfilled the strikes on ISIS targets. Keeping a carrier close to Russian strategic interests also tracks closely with the Defense Department's recently released National Defense Strategy that declared that interstate strategic competition, not terrorism, is now the primary concern in U.S. national security. The Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group, CSG, returned to Naval Station Norfolk after completing their composite training unit exercise, Kamchooks, March 1, certifying the strike group ready for deployment. Harry S. Truman CSG got underway February 1 to participate in Kamchooks, a series of training scenarios that tested the strike group's abilities in multiple categories including air warfare, straight transiting, visual information, responses to surface and subsurface contacts, electronic attacks and more. According to Commander of Carrier Strike Group, CSG, 4 Rear ADM Kenny Weitzel, which mentored and assessed Harry S. Truman CSG throughout the exercise, Kamchooks provided dynamic learning opportunities for the strike group. "Every Kamchooks is a little bit different," Weitzel said. "We are a learning organization. Unfortunately, our threats are adapting as fast as we learn. This requires us to increase the complexity, the volume, and the difficulty of the exercise so that we prepare the Harry S. Truman Strike Group and its coalition partners for deployment." Kamchooks demonstrates that sailors are ready for deployment by evaluating their skills in a variety of scenarios while building cohesiveness with the other units involved. Although the team trains for specific tasks, the familiarity will allow the strike group to be ready for a variety of potential threats or situations. This crew has been tested under the most difficult environment, the toughest scenarios, and against the most threatening enemy, Weitzel said. This strike group can perform anywhere in the world. They are worldwide deployable and will be successful as a carrier strike group based on what they have accomplished over the last 28 days. Throughout this exercise, I've seen all elements of our strike group, the flagship, the air wing, the destroyer squadron, and USS Normandy come together as one team to tackle even the most complex warfighting scenarios, Harry S. Truman CSG Commander Rear ADM Gene Black said. The Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group is trained, and we are ready to answer our nation's call. Truman is currently moored at Naval Station Norfolk conducting preparations for deployment.